I really think people need time after they graduate to figure themselves out first before they make a major decision, like what they're going to do for the next 4 years for schooling and how they're going to pay for it. I think, honestly, the way I did it was the best thing. I worked for 2 years and then I went to school. I actually wouldn't have done it the other way where I just went to school.
Welcome to Give a Heck. I am your host, Dwight Heck, and for much of my life, lived my life in quiet desperation, wondering how I was going to pay the bills, take vacations, save for retirement, and one day wondering if I would get off the hamster wheel of life and have purpose. A life that most of society lives, which takes us to work, then home, then repeat, and pays us hopefully enough just to survive. The harsh truth that most live with more month than money and have no idea how to live life on purpose, not by accident. This ensures the mass majority are living not just financially broke, however, emotionally and mentally as well due to financial pressures. In each episode, I will introduce you to thoughts, ideas, and guests that can help you to learn how you too can live life on purpose, not by accident.
Good day and welcome to Give a Heck. On today's show, I welcome Annie Margarita Yang. Annie is a definitive voice in millennial finance, specializing in strategies for beating today's tough economic challenges. She is also the best-selling author of 2 books, 1001 Ways to Save Money and The 5-Day Job Search, which helps young professionals get out of their student loan debt while finding the ideal job. With more than 1 million views on YouTube, her witty approach to tough talk sets her apart from others. Annie's candid style cuts to the noise, delivering foolproof advice for real-world challenges. Far from the generic tips, her tips focus on practical steps to quickly improve finances, especially for challenges unique to millennials. Based in Boston with her husband, Annie complements her professional life with a love for piano, adding another layer to her multifaceted persona. I'd like to welcome you to the show, Annie. Thanks so much for agreeing to come on and share with us some of your life journey.
Dwight, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I'm excited for this conversation. It's always good to have another lane to actually travel in when it comes to different subjects. And so many people are so narrow-minded, they go out and spew the same information over and over again without actually ever cracking a book or listening to a podcast or going to a conference to change their mindset. And they live in that hamster wheel of life. So I look forward to you sharing your knowledge with my listeners and viewers so that they can think differently, so that they can actually make better informed decisions, not always based on the past. So, Annie, one of the things that I focus on, as I mentioned before we hit record, is a person's origin story to help us be able to connect with you. I would love it if you could do me a favor and share from your childhood to adulthood the things that you've gone through to lead you to where you're at currently.
Well, since a lot of the things I talk about is finances, a lot of my childhood did have to do with finances. So my parents are actually immigrants from China and they're working class. So my mom, she didn't have an education beyond 6th grade and she was a farmer. They were so poor, they drew water from a well. So coming here to the United States, they had only $400 and of course didn't speak very much English. So that's the kind of like background they're from. So growing up, we didn't have a lot of money. I didn't know what it was like to eat out because eating out was only for very special occasions like birthdays or holidays or Chinese New Year or something like that. So all throughout growing up, I always thought we were poor, right? Um, that's a later story. I didn't discover until later in my 20s that my mom made a lot of money. But yeah, throughout my childhood, I thought we were poor. And then in high school, I remember specifically, I liked this boy. He's West Indian, so he had brown skin. And he told me that I should tell my parents that he was my boyfriend at 14 years old. So I told my parents, oh, mom, dad, I have a boyfriend and he's black. I didn't understand the difference between black and brown. And my parents just freaked out. And they tried to discipline me by taking away my cell phone. And so at that time in my life, I was earning an allowance of $20 a week. I had to earn it though. I had to wash the dishes after every single meal to get $20 a week. So they took away my cell phone, but my boyfriend had given me his brother's cell phone that he no longer used. So all I had to do was I had to pay for the minutes. I would buy 100 T-Mobile minutes at a time to fill my cell phone with using my own allowance. So I was just like, okay, well, I guess my parents can't tell me what to do because it's my own money. So that's kind of like high school years that I had. A lot of control, basically. Like I remember very clearly when they paid for my guitar lessons or my singing lessons, my mom would say, "Oh, we paid for your guitar lessons, therefore you have to be a good daughter and do X in return." They like every time they paid for something that I wanted, it had some sort of strings attached in terms of my behavior. And I thought, wow, if this keeps up into my adulthood, then they're going to try to control my adulthood by telling me which college I should go to, what I should major in college. If they pay for my lifestyle in adulthood as well, that would also dictate where I live, what I do for a living. And I didn't want that. I really didn't. So basically, the allowance was all I had. I even had to use my own allowance to buy menstrual pads. My mom didn't even buy menstrual pads for me after
Wow.
14. Yeah, and with this kind of like background, I was just like watching people apply to go to college when I was like 16 to 18 years old, in the junior and senior year of high school. I'm just like watching the people around me applying to go to very prestigious, very expensive colleges where they would be required to take on student loan debt. And this was back in like 2011 to 2013, like just
Mhm.
when everything was like bottoming in the Great Recession. And I was reading news stories of recent college grads coming out and just they didn't have jobs. They were underemployed or unemployed, 50% of them. It was all over the news, right? All the headlines were like this. And so when I saw that, I was like, wait, if I follow in those footsteps, then I'm going to graduate college and come out like that. I'm going to have to move back home with my parents and they're going to dictate what I do with my life. And that's my biggest fear, right? So I decided I wasn't going to go. I'm not going to go to college. I don't want to take on student loan debt. But it was definitely a lot of pressure because I was a straight A student. So teachers, classmates, my guidance counselor, they were all telling me, everyone was telling me, I am making the biggest mistake of my life to not go straight to college, to not take on student loan debt. And I will be an absolute failure for the rest of my life. And I'm never going to make more than minimum wage. Basically, I'm destined to work at McDonald's forever. So that's basically my origin story.
Wow. It's it's very interesting origin story. You're a great storyteller. I know that's part of a lot of people don't understand. And I know you talk about that with your branding as well. I was reading and I smiled when I was reading that because most people don't understand the power of a story, the power of our words and how we can share with one another. So I appreciate that. And that strings attached, you talked about the conditions that our parents put on us. I understand that, like people saying, well, we paid for this, we did this. I had to learn as a parent myself, my kids are all adults now, when I got older, that I needed to break the cycle of what they taught. And that's what you ended up doing. We wanted to break that cycle. You didn't want, yes, we may smile about it. Your biggest fear is having maybe to go back to your parents. I think we all have that fear somewhat because we don't want to be controlled. We want our independence. So I know with me parenting my kids and them growing up, I was very specific. As obviously you're not the same from the first kid to my fifth because I have five, right? I
Hmm.
got better as we go on. The thing is, are we getting better when it comes to life? Are we getting better? Are we breaking those cycles or chains of learned behavior that are conducive to what society wants? Like you and your teachers telling you and other people, counselors, you're a straight A student. You need to get to college and get into debt. Yeah. Jump on the hamster wheel with the rest of society and you have fun there. Right? That's basically what it is. So I want to start off by congratulations for being you, being independent. Like, I'm so excited for the listeners to hear more about your journey. Like, I know you decided to go back to school yourself. You worked part-time so that you could come out of school and prove to society that you don't have to have student loans. So could you share more of that part of your story, please?
Yeah, so I worked a whole string of minimum wage jobs from 18 to 20 years old, and then at some point my boyfriend, very manipulative, had done something very wrong to the point where he had to go to jail. And I was really heartbroken because he was my only friend, my only confidant who I could tell everything to. So all of a sudden, I had nobody in my life. And then this self made millionaire from South Korea, very old lady in her 70s, had come into the hardware store where I was working. And she just looked at me in the eye and said, "Young lady, you're a very smart woman. I want to hire you for a job." And I was like, I didn't even talk to her. I was playing with her dog. I never met this customer. So I went to her office and then she's like, "Well, where's your resume?" And then I was like, "What resume? You just said you wanted to give me a job. I need to bring a resume." And what's the point? I mean, I didn't know I had to bring a resume. I thought I already had the job, right?
Yeah.
She's like, "Okay, well, write a resume on the spot. Here's a pen and paper. Handwrite it." I was like, "Okay." And then I wrote it. And she's like, "You didn't go to college?" "No." "Oh, you need to go to college." And I look, I know she's self-made, so I respect her opinion more than a guidance counselor, right? Like, I want to be a
Yeah.
self-made millionaire myself one day, so I'll take advice from someone who's already successful. And she told me to go enroll in community college, and then she's like, "And when you're done going to community college, you're going to go to Harvard." That part didn't come true, but I went to community college. And then when I went, I discovered that because my parents made such a low income, and because I was only 20, I wasn't considered independent from them, even though I already moved out, paid my own bills and everything. By law, I'm considered dependent because I'm not 24 years old yet. I was under their income, and it was so low that I got a Pell Grant and the New York State TAP grant, and that paid for the tuition of community college. And not only that, whatever's left over after the tuition's paid, what got direct deposited into my bank account. So
Awesome.
that was a nice deal, right? I got like maybe $800 a month deposited into my bank account. So that basically paid for my living expenses. I didn't have to work while going to community
Oh,
college.
that's good.
Yes. And not only that, I got this deal where I didn't have to pay rent because the place where I was living, the property manager said, "Oh, if you could help me collect rent from the other tenants from all the buildings I manage, then you get to live here for free." So that $800 just basically paid for my living expenses minus rent because rent was free. So I had a really good deal.
Wow.
And then some point during my time at community college, I think I got really upset with one of the English professors. She had reminded us since the beginning of the semester to bring in this very specific book to class because we're going to read it in class. And I remember I had put it in my bag, but just the day before that lesson started, I took it out of my bag to check that I did my homework properly. I forgot to put it back in my bag after that. So I went to class that day without the book. And she had such a tantrum. She ranted for 20 minutes at the class because half of the class showed up without the book. And she said, if you're here and you don't have the book, I'm going to mark you as absent, even if you participate today. And I was like, what? So even if I put in the effort and I could just sit next to someone else who has a book, I'm going to be marked absent. I walked out of the class.
More
I said,
control.
yeah, I cannot handle authority, especially people who like authority and use the power to their own, I don't know, selfish
Yeah.
gain or something like that. I just didn't like that. So I just walked out because I was like, well, if I'm going to be marked absent, what's the point of me being here? Right?
Yeah.
I walked out, and that day I decided there has to be a better way to do college. Some way I could finish faster without this professor, all these professors like just having this sense of power and control. And then I found out that you could graduate college bachelor's degree from one of like 3 universities here in the United States, where you can test out of your degree. So basically, you can study for exams on your own, take the exam, and you can pass and get college credit for it. They're CLEP exams and DSST exams. These are exams that people in the military actually do to get college credit, because they're always moving around, right, for service. Therefore, they take these exams. So it's like a well-known secret in the military itself. And I was like, wow, is this legit? And it is legit. One exam cost only $90 also.
Wow,
So I ended
not
up
bad.
I took like maybe a whole, what was it? How many? 30 credits worth of exams just from studying on my own and passing.
Good
And
for you.
yeah, so I ended up testing out of my bachelor's degree, and I paid only $10,000 for that.
Wow, that's cheap because I know today in the education system, or even back 10 years ago, you can easily accumulate 70, 80, $100,000 worth of debt if you're into more of a high end career, like going to be a doctor or scientist or whatever. They even get into more debt because I have clients that are doctors, and the amount of debt that they went through to get where they're at is just unbelievable. And then you spend the next 10, 15 years hoping you can pay it off. So because that came up as part of what you were saying too, and how many people, one of the things that you have researched, and again, you talked about experiencing, is the fact that people go to college, university. Let's say they go for some programs, like in our country, you can go to more rapid, where it's 2 years versus 4 years. You can do we have online universities, similar to what you were talking about. You can go and challenge things and get credits, but the costs are just extraordinary. I find that a lot of people go to school and come out, and I know you've experienced this in the US, I'm in Canada, where people don't go and do what they're going to do. They finish their degree or their diploma, they get it because they got people controlling them because they are paying for their schooling. You got to finish school, and they come out and they ended up going and working a menial job because they found out they really didn't want to do that. And now they're in our country, it can be as high as 70 to 80% to come out of university or college that don't even work in the field of their interests, yet they got all this
Really?
student loan debt.
Oh my gosh, I
It's
thought it was
very
close
high.
to half.
No, it's higher than that. I don't know what the newest stats are for since the pandemic because that changed everything. So to be fair, it could be lower, but we were seeing numbers as high as like 68%, 75%, depending on what program people were going into. So maybe the average would still be around 60% of people not going into their chosen field. I have clients that went to school to become teachers, nurses, etc., that are no longer doing those. They started out in it. They might have even made it a couple of years and then decided they didn't like it. So I think our
Oh.
school system has some challenges, not just in Canada, but in the US, because I have a lot of friends in the US. I speak there, I've been there quite often. And I find that we have a breakdown from because you mentioned your parents, you didn't want them to tell you what to go to school for. That happens to people all the time. They're counselors, which really have not achieved a lot. No offense to counselors listening, but you telling somebody they should go and become an engineer when you have no idea what it's like for them to become an engineer or what that career is like, you're giving wrong advice. You really don't know. You're using standardized questions to find out what what you think they should do. My question for you though is, what do you think is going to be the solution for that? Do you think it should be way back from when they're in junior high, like middle school, to going into high school to try to narrow down? Because I think our education system's broken in helping people figure out what they should do, right? Or maybe they shouldn't push them and give them time to grow outside of themselves once they graduate.
I really think people need time after they graduate to figure themselves out first before they make a major decision, like what they're going to do for the next 4 years for schooling and how they're going to pay for it. I think, honestly, the way I did it was the best thing. I worked for 2 years and then I went to school. I actually wouldn't have done it the other way where I just went to school. Looking back, there was a lot of pressure to follow the normal one. But looking back, I wouldn't have done anything different from what I did. And I think that's the better way because it really makes people question what they should do with their life. What I have found, I'm 29 now. So all the people I went to school with, that started like, okay, I need to go to school. Okay, now I need to get a job, right? They climbed up the wrong ladder. So there was all this pressure in their early 20s to follow that path. And then only closer to their 30s, they realized, oh, I've been climbing up the wrong ladder. Now I'm unhappy and unfulfilled in my career. How am I going to switch to something else where I'm happier? And I really think they should have started asking that question, what will I do that will make me happy for my career, when they were 18?
Well, what do they do
They-
though in life though? We look at a lot of people when they go to school. I heard it from my own adult kids. I heard it from many of my clients that I've coached. It's like going to a restaurant. When people are struggling they look at the right side of the menu, then they look at what that cost will buy them. Well, it's the same thing. I've seen that with school. They look at what the income they can potentially make. Oh, let's go into that. They don't even really put in the research or think about it. And if it's not them figuring it out for themselves, it's the counselor that's guided them that way, or their parents. Get a high paying job. Well, this mom, this is like picking up dog poop. I don't want to do that for a living, but look what it pays. Like we don't look at ourselves enough. And I love how you put that. We need to look, what are you going to do to satisfy yourself? Then worry about it, because money is great. Just like that lady you met in the store that was a self-made millionaire. Money is great, but you got to be happy. You really do,
yeah.
because this is one life, one shot. Life's in session. This isn't a dress rehearsal. We can't get that time back. So, yeah, I appreciate you saying that. So, one of the things that you've really focused on is helping people understand, right? So your best-selling book, The 5-Day Job Search, helps young professionals get out of student loan debt while helping them deal with those tough interview questions and create multiple job offers. I know myself, I've been in some wicked interviews before I ever became an entrepreneur, and I would have loved to have had somebody like you coach me through that process. So before we get into all the aspects of the book, how did you help people? So before we get into the interview part, what would you suggest and how do you recommend people that are buried in student loan debt and they don't see the light at the end of the tunnel? What are the first steps that you do to educate them and help them so they can get past that struggle?
The first thing is, this is to add on to knowing what you want to do, right? So this is
Okay,
part B of knowing
absolutely.
what you want to
Yeah,
do. Is
absolutely.
what job title are you going to target? Right? Like, you don't just say I'm an accountant. Like, accountant has many different job titles. Are you staff accountant 1, staff accountant 2, junior accountant? Like there's so many. And I think the problem is you have never been taught what is the trajectory, like this plan. What is the 50-year plan? If you want to be a CFO, what are the positions you need to take along the way to get the CFO title? If you want to be hotel manager in 10 years, what are those positions along the way that you need to get promoted to get to hotel manager? You don't just wake up and then, oh, the next job I can apply to is hotel manager. Like, it's actually very methodically planned out to get there, right? So once you know what you want to do, that long-term 20 years from now title, right? Then you work backwards to find out what the title is for your next job search. So that's how you move up in your career to make money instead of like going sideways. Does that make
Makes
sense?
sense. Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So let
So,
me use the
yeah,
example
go on.
of a front desk agent. Somebody came to me, he's a front desk agent, said, I want to be a hotel manager. I said, let me work backwards for you. I went on LinkedIn and I searched for people who had the current title of hotel manager. And I just looked at their career trajectory, looking back at all the titles they had, going back to, the oldest experience. And then I just wrote down all of the titles they had along the way. I think I did 20 people's history. And then I was like, oh, so the next position you should be applying to is not another front desk agent job. It should be a front desk supervisor. That will help you get in the direction of where you want to go, and you can make more money instead of working as a front desk agent, right? So you target that next role, basically.
You're facilitating their roadmap in life of where they want to go. You're their GPS, which is basically what I'm
Basically.
hearing. Yeah, and that's great though, because and how many people are listening or watching? Did you catch the fact of how she did it? LinkedIn. I hear that a lot. People use LinkedIn a lot. Well, it's a professional platform and people want to showcase what they've gone through to get where they're at. So what a great tool for people to use, and good for you for utilizing that tool in a fashion like that. I wouldn't have thought of that. So if
We
you
all have
just,
access to the same
yeah,
data. It's all on how you
yeah,
use it.
yeah, exactly. And do we use it? Do we use access to that information through LinkedIn? I talk to a lot of people and they'll say, well, what do you utilize for certain things? And I'll mention, LinkedIn's a great place. I get people reaching out to me, and I'm still working on my LinkedIn presence. And because it is a great platform, there's a lot of charlatans on LinkedIn, though. There's a lot of, pitching. You get pitch slapped to death, right? But so it scares people off. But I'm here to tell people listening or watching, LinkedIn is a great tool if utilized correctly, because there's a plethora of data. And Annie's just told you one way, just one of many ways that you can use LinkedIn to succeed. So at that point in time, you've told the person where they apply for that next position to help them get where they want to go, and it didn't involve necessarily them being in school, right? So
No. And I actually want to tag on to that as well
sure.
because he had this belief. He came to me with this limiting belief. He said, I can never be a hotel manager because I don't have the education. So I had met this guy through community college. He was my classmate. And he actually never ended up finishing his associate's degree. And so he was like, I'm not qualified to ever become a hotel manager because I don't even have even my associate's degree. And then I was like, really? You need a bachelor's to become a hotel manager? Like, who says that? Oh, the job listing. But in my research, so this is the great thing of like researching other people who have done it. I saw for the education as well, I saw biology degrees, geology degrees, sociology degrees, I don't know, politics, right? Like only actually a small handful had a bachelor's degree in hospitality or hotel management. And then I found a whole bunch of people who didn't have a college education at all, but they were working as a hotel manager. And what they had instead was they did this e-certificate course from eCornell. So Cornell University has certificate programs online that you can take. And these people, they took this $3,000 certificate course. And they were working as hotel managers. So you don't need to pay tens of thousands of dollars to become a hotel manager.
Again, it's back to the learned behavior of what people are taught or what they read or believe. I've helped clients and even myself prior to becoming a serial entrepreneur. And I was fresh out of college and I was looking at, and this job would say you had to have this university degree, which I didn't have. And some of them would, so I reached out to a few of them and say, you must have a university degree. Well, what kind of degree? Oh, we don't care. Okay, well then why do you need me to have a degree? It's because people are stuck in a rut. They're stuck in the past, that they believe that all a degree tells me is that person was a great student. They were able to finish school. It doesn't tell me, even if I'm hiring them for that, if they're an engineer, that they're going to be a good engineer, that they're going to be a good chartered accountant or whatever, certified accountant. It doesn't tell me anything. Like me personally, that says the education I've learned throughout my life, that we have to stop pigeonholing people. So I looked for jobs where they didn't ask for a degree, right? And applied and no problems. And sometimes I'd apply for jobs that would ask for a degree. And obviously I did get to a few of them where I had interviews and they'll say, so what degree do you have? None. Well, why are you here then? Because I fit everything else you asked for, but I don't have a degree. How does that make me not compatible with what you're looking for? Or what does
And
it make me
why are you
not,
even
right?
inviting me to the interview if you think I'm unqualified? Why
Yeah,
did you
I'm
invite me
serious.
here?
I'm serious. I went
Yeah.
through, I went to stuff where I did it intentionally. I remember applying for a very high-end position for a company that most people, 90% of people listening know who Manulife Financial is. I applied for a position to supervise and take over. There was a period of time where I thought I'd leave my own brokerage because I was just going through stuff, raising my kids as a single dad. I thought, oh, I'm going to apply for this job with Manulife. It pays well. It's 9 to 5. I get paid vacation. I get benefits, all the things I was paying for myself as an entrepreneur. And they had the degree thing. I applied for it. I got in, got the interview. I'm sitting with the lady, went to a second interview, and then it finally come up, and I told myself, I don't have a degree. Well, how did you get this far? I don't know. How did you miss it? I did. I said that to her. I said, how did you miss it?
Oh my
So,
gosh.
so am I not as qualified now for the job? She
I
says,
like
no,
your reaction.
I want to hire you. She says, I want to hire you. I don't care that you have it or not. This is what comes from the upper head, the old white dudes that are way up high
Ah, so
are
someone way up high was interested in you.
was dictating. No, they were dictating that you had to have a degree. She was the one that
Oh.
went through the resumes and picked me.
Mm.
Right. She just didn't catch that. She liked everything else. She loved my experience and the fact that I had been a compliance officer, a certified branch manager already. I'd done all these. I was more than qualified to do what she did. I was overqualified, really. I ended up not taking the job. Right. I was just testing the waters because I was going through some circumstances, again, raising my kids where I wanted more consistency for them. But God spoke to me differently. I'm a God-fearing person, did some praying. And he said, no, you got to work harder, stay in your wheelhouse, stay in your entrepreneurship. It'll do great things. And thank goodness I listened, right? But it was funny to go to a job interview where I was not qualified for it, right? In their opinion, because I didn't have that $20 university degree with the fancy words saying I had this and that,
What's so
right?
funny is they never even check.
No, why?
I have
Like, why
never
ask
had
for it?
I've never even had like an employer ask, "Can I see a copy of your high school diploma or a copy of your college degree?" Like, "Can I see a copy of that? Can I
What
also get a
about the
copy of the
references?
transcript?"
What about
I've
your
never had.
references? What about references?
Well,
You know how
they've
many
emailed
times
my references.
oh, I've
They've
had
yeah,
so
they've
many
actually checked.
times where they don't even check references. It's hilarious, not just for me, just business owners that I deal with, and they'll tell me to get this person and
It's
blah, blah,
probably just
blah.
going through the motions. Oh, somebody said in the
Exactly.
handbook that I need to collect the references. Okay, I will follow the instructions in this handbook because I was given this handbook, basically. Yeah.
Those listening note references are so easy to fake though. And I'm talking from because I have a lot of business clients, corporate clients too. People will put down this person at this job and they'll put down their phone number and then they'll tell such and such, you know what, somebody might call and pretend you're this person. And I've had clients tell me that's happened to them, and they find out after the fact that that person was a terrible employee. If they actually had called the company, so now I'll suggest them, you know
To
what?
call the company
Call the
directly.
company directly and say, hey, such and such works for you or used to work for you. And if they tell you, oh, you can't call my company because I don't want to, if things don't work out, I don't want them to know I'm looking for other work. Red flags everywhere. Like, come on, right? You should be able to look for other work. If you're valuable enough to your company, they're gonna try to keep you, not
Mhm.
punish you for it. So I love that. So we talked about the fact of people getting into a job. There's so many different ways for them to accomplish it, not necessarily having to go to school. So what about that person? Now they've gone to school, maybe people and they're 60, 80. I don't know what the average student loan debt is in the US. I haven't researched it again since before the pandemic when I was still doing a lot of speaking and teaching down there. What do you do for that person? How do you help them through that circumstance of now they got all that debt and it's just crushing them and they're living in quiet desperation because of it?
They need to get a better paying job. That's why yeah,
I
yeah,
love
that's
it.
the only way. That is the only
I
way.
love it. I love it.
They need to do the job hopping thing that employers hate. That's the only way. So when I moved from Texas is when I was working at Domino's Pizza. I moved from Texas to Boston. I don't have an accounting degree because I tested out of my degree. I took the path of least resistance. I got a communications degree. I never took accounting 101 ever, but I was working as a bookkeeper. So I was like, well, maybe if I try my luck, I can push and see what's at the edge of my comfort zone. Maybe I can land an accounting job, right? And so when I moved here, I applied to 50 jobs a day. And I said, I'm just going to keep applying to 50 jobs a day until I get an offer. And lo and behold, I got an offer on day 7. So an actual written offer on day 7. And then that guy, I worked for him for 2 months. He was very, very toxic. He was tracking my bathroom breaks, basically. So I said, it's time
Wow.
for a new job. I'm going to apply for another one. I applied on the train to work that day. And then by the end of the day, I had an interview lined up. So
Wow.
yeah, I got the other job. It was paying only 45K. It was entry level accounting job. That's normal, right? And I was like, okay, I'll take that. And then a year later, I said, I need to buy a house. So we don't have student loan debt. I don't have student loan debt, right? But I do know that I want to make more money because I looked at the mortgage interest rates. I looked at how much it costs to buy a property here in Boston. And then I was like, I'm really frugal. I know how to save money. We've lived on minimum wage. So saving money for the down payment is not an issue at all. We should be right on target if we follow our budget. But I won't meet the income requirements for the mortgage. Right. So that's a second requirement. How much income you're making to make sure everything is under the 30%, debt to income ratio and things like that. And then I was like, oh, I calculate that I need to make at least 70K for qualifying for the mortgage. So,
Qualify.
so
Yeah.
I need to go from 45K to 70K. That's a big jump. And there's no way my current employer at the time would give me that. And so I was like, okay, it's just time to start job hopping and applying to jobs again and see what's out there. And of course, so you have to target the next title up. Don't target the same title, right? Otherwise, you're just going to get the same pay. So I targeted the title accounting manager instead. I didn't understand that actually the accounting manager title is too much of a jump from what I was working just staff accountant. I didn't understand that. So now I know. That's why I'm telling you guys to chart it out.
Do your research. Do your
Yeah,
research. Yeah.
yeah. But instead, the title I targeted was just the manager position because I was like, well, the low end of the manager makes 70K and then the high end makes 110K. So I need that end. So I'm just going to apply for those kinds of jobs. And then I got an interview, and then on the 5th day, I got a written offer from the employer. He gave me 80K. So that was a 35K jump, right? So this is why I say if you want to pay off your student loans quickly, you're going to need to chart out the path, the promotions, and then job hop along the way, maybe every year, every 2 years, and get those raises. These are big raises. They're not like cost of living raises, right? And then with every single raise, you don't have lifestyle inflation. So like when I got the 80K offer and I started working there, I'm not spending 80K a year. I'm continuing to live like I make 45K a year. I saved the difference and I used that to save for our down payment on our house even quicker. So if you have student loans, the average person coming out of college owes $36,000 in student loan debt in the United States. I mean, can you imagine if you just got like a 35K raise after tax, after you consider, income tax? If you just kept the same lifestyle, you could pay off those loans in a year and a half, I think. I think it's doable.
Oh yeah, people need to plan better though. Like I do a lot of, obviously as a financial planner, I sit with younger people. I'm going to actually sit with somebody younger today and discuss debt and discuss how they can get rid of it faster than they realize. And it's all about planning. It's about having an idea. What's your financial roadmap? What are your goals? Well, this is what I got going on in my life. And one of those things on the road is getting rid of their financial debt. And I'll ask them what's the priority level for them. And a lot of them have gotten comfortable. They'll just make the minimum payment on it. And it's, that's fine. Oh, I get to write off, like in Canada, you get to write it off, right? As you're paying it off, you can
But
write
just
off
the
the
interest,
interest.
right?
Yeah,
Just the interest.
yeah, just the interest. Like they don't give it enough validity that it's something that needs to be dealt with sooner than later, because having debt and then saving for your future, saving for your first down payment on your home or whatever, you're throwing money away. You're better off to figure out. So I do the same sort of thing. I put them through a process of, this is what you need to do. Oh, here's your detailed budget, right? These are needs and wants. Oh, one of the things down here is your student loan. That's a need. You need to get rid of that. Right. And like, as you're saying, well, if you're in a position of a job and you want to get rid of debt or you want to save for a house, what's the trajectory to go for the next position so that you're going from 45 to 80,000? Like that's a huge jump in income. And if you can be like you're obviously a very tenacious person, though. You know what you want and you research and figure it out and go for it, which is fantastic. Most people aren't like that. Unfortunately, those listening and watching, we aren't taught to be what Annie is, right? We just aren't. So you need somebody to coach you. So even before we get to the end of this podcast, which is a few minutes, we still got a few minutes left yet, reach out to Annie if you're in any of the circumstances and hire her. Get some advice, help yourself on your life, and understand that even myself at my age and Annie at her age, we all have life experiences that are based on poor decision making that was influenced by society, right? Other people, our parents, people we went to school with. There's so many other choices. Annie's already taught us a whole bunch. Like, I thought it would be something, well, this is what you should do for getting out of student loan. Get a better job. I love it. Like,
It's very simple.
very
The
simple.
advice
Get
is
a
very
better,
simple.
yeah, very simple. But I love that. Like that,
The problem is people don't take the action to do it. The advice is so simple. It's like you have two options. You either make more money or you cut your expenses and save more money. There's just no other way in the
that I say
financial
it all the
transaction
time.
in your balance
I
sheet. There's just no
I
other way.
say it all the time. And when I goal sheets that I do with people and they say we want this, and that. Okay. And I said aside, okay, let's do your budget now. Let's go through and budget all your numbers. And I'll say, you tell me what you think should be on the budget. They're usually missing like a third. They're missing at least 30% of the things that they don't think about. They just got stuck in their head that they pay for. They don't realize it needs to be on their budget. And we get to the end and they have situations, some of them where there's more month than money. They run out of days in a month and their money is gone. And they have all these grandiose goals. And I'll go, well, so how are you going to do this? Well, that's what you're here for. That's
Well,
one response I'll
they
hear.
end up just sticking
Right?
their head in the sand.
Yeah. Or they run the
they
other
rather
way.
ignore it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they do. Sometimes they'll be like, oh, well, they don't want my help. Well, that's fine because I'm looking for the willing. I'm looking for the person that wants to change. And I'll say, okay, well, we still want that stuff. What do we need to do? Okay, well,
Mm-hmm.
this is what, and then I start going through and I educate them on how to do debt roll up. Sometimes it's so severe they have to do debt consolidation. I'll teach them little simple things between a need and a want. I'll go through the budget and I'll point at things. Is that a need or a want? I literally will do that to make them have to make those decisions themselves because if somebody makes decisions for us, we don't take it as serious. You've already talked about that. But if we make that decision ourselves, now it's personal. We're going to put more effort into it. Does it work every time with the people I've dealt with over the last 21 years? No. Right? Sometimes it just doesn't. Like you said, some people want to stick their head in the sand and they just want to roll over, pull the blankets over their head and hope
They just
everything
pray that it gets
disappears.
better. They pray that God will help make everything better.
Yeah, but it doesn't work that way though.
Yeah.
You have to live with intentionality. And so many people today don't understand intentionality. They don't actually sit back and look at their lives and actually, you know, say to themselves, I want to look at my life and where am I at now? They wait and do it once. When did most people do it?
New Year's Eve.
December. Yeah, December and they start doing their resolutions, which most people never ever do. Do you know what? You don't have to wait, those listening. You don't have to wait. You can start today. You don't have to wait till next New Year's. You can reset yourself. For those that don't get it, read a book called The 12-Week Year. If you want to understand how you can really position your life. Fabulous book on how to goal set and do and live a new year every 12 weeks. It's amazing, but it's called structure, which most of us aren't used to. And you're going to have to put some effort in, and it won't be painless. It won't be, it'll be something you're going to have to put effort into to actually
My
put
mom would
effort in.
say, "No pain, no gain." She would always say that when I was growing up.
But isn't it, but the pain, wouldn't you agree though, that the pain, no gain is a great statement, but the pain you go through is how much you give it power over you. Right? The power you have over you. So that pain can be a good pain. I believe that some pain is good in our lives because it makes us know that we're alive, that we're striving to achieve things. So pain can be a good thing.
I
I don't,
actually look at pain
right?
differently. I hate pain.
Do you?
I'm like a pain avoider. So
So but you talked
no,
about
so
fear
the
too,
moment I
though.
have problems, the moment
Yeah.
I encounter a problem or something negative and painful, I'm like, I want this to stop now, right? So, but instead of running away from it, the problem is like I solve the problem so that the problem will go away for good. So that's the
But the,
difference.
but
I
we're but
hate
we're
pain so much.
but we're talking the same thing though, because you're
Yeah,
saying you face the pain, you find a solution to get rid of it. But that pain was the driver for you to find the solution to get rid of it. So
right.
the pain isn't necessarily, that's what I'm getting at. The pain doesn't always have to be something that we're fearful of. Like look at the word term fear. You were fearful of moving back in with your parents and you did something about it. So what's the acronym of fear? It means so many different things. I have followed this now for 20 years. For me, every time I think of fear, it's face everything and rise. So it's back to what you don't like pain, so you wanted to rise above it. So you found the solution to get rid of that pain as soon as possible. The pain was a driver for you, and the fear of staying stuck too. So you faced everything and you rose above it. Good for you. That's what people need to learn. We need to teach more people about the fact that fear is a motivator. If you use it to slow you down and hold you back, you're society, what they normally do, most of
Yeah.
society, right?
But I
And
think
pain too, right?
emotionally though, um what has really driven me all these years to where I am today, it wasn't that fear actually, that was a secondary fear. The number
Yeah.
one thing is I will replay in my head almost every day on a daily basis. My guidance counselor told me I would be a failure for the rest of my life.
Oh,
I
wow.
will replay words that people have said to me that they're like, you're destined to fail. You're a loser, you're a failure. I will replay those in my head. And then I just imagine myself someday going like, who's the loser now? B word, like it's just like I imagine myself in the future super successful. They'll see me on TV on the cover of magazines and everything. And I just want to, see the look on their face when they see my success. Really, that's what's driven me all these years. It's
There's
anger.
nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with that though. I have people that judge me back, obviously I'm older than you, but back when I was in school, I still remember it. I can remember those teachers or those professors when I went to college here in Canada. They were very encouraging and those that were very negative. Like I remember going into one of the hardest classes in my I went through electronics engineering at a trade school here. It was an accelerated 2-year program, and one of the last classes that we had in our last semester, our fourth semester, the instructor come in and there was about 32, 34 of us in there. It wasn't a very big class. And he says, 80% of you are going to fail. Let's get started. We're just like, what? Great way to start the class there, professor. Like, holy, you still feared us already. So then there was only, I think there was maybe between 4 and 6 of us that passed, and I was one of them. And it was
so
tough.
so what? He like
It was
graded
tough.
it such that like on purpose, 80% will fail. Like he graded it in such a way.
We had labs and we had projects and we had to do very advanced math. Like calculus would be the kindergarten of what this math was that we had to learn in this engineering class.
Right.
And he literally would give us projects to do. We'd have to write papers, we'd have exams, and he would you missed even the most minute. He looked for ways to fail people, right? So he had already in
Uh,
his mindset, he was already targeting to get rid of people,
well, he sounds like a really
right?
miserable guy.
Oh, he was miserable. But you know what though?
Yeah.
Here's the thing about somebody that is tenacious and wants something bad enough. I was wanting to pass, and I literally went up and would talk to him, and I'd listen to all his chatter and his negative comments, and I'd say, "Okay, will you help me with this anyway?" Right? I'd go up to him after school, and then I found some other people in class. There was a group of us that used to stay after school into the evenings, and we'd help one another to understand, and we'd talk about how did he mark you on this? And we figured out I'm serious.
I
We
see.
figured out some nuances of what this guy was, how he was wired. And that's how we passed. We did. We worked as a collective, right? Like the Borg, if
To
you're if
beat the
you're a
big
Star
guy.
Trek fan. Yeah, to beat the big guy. And I remember passing, and he smiled and says, "Good job. This is what you guys should have done. This guy come and talk to me all the time." Right?
Oh, so
Stuff like that, right?
he thought it was
Oh
from you
yeah.
coming to talk to him
Oh
all the
yeah.
time. He
I
didn't know it
was
was because everyone banded together to
no,
share information.
we did. We shared information and looked at each other's stuff and how it was marked, and we figured out little things that would make it so that we didn't get failed. Right? We used the system against him of him wanting to get rid of people, but it was a tough program. There was 200 people that started with me, and 2 years later, 18 of us graduated. So it wasn't easy. It wasn't something that you could sit back and, oh, like there's some people that come out of high school, they're honor students, and then they all of a sudden get to college and they're failing because
Yeah.
they never learned trajectory or how to plan or how to prepare, right? So, and I wasn't the best at it. I just happened to be in a group of people where we literally were the same group that helped each other all the way through school. We stuck
Your
together.
story reminds me of this class that I took. It was called Small Group Communication. I took it in community college. This is also one of the reasons why I was like, I want to test out, because some professors are very biased like that. And I had a professor who would give exams, and then I answered the multiple choice question correctly, but she would mark it as wrong. She would pick the opposite answer that was actually the incorrect one as being correct in her mind, right? And then I actually went to her in office hours. I went with the textbook. I said, it literally says word for word in the textbook the answer that I picked. And then she's like, no, you interpreted the text incorrectly. Like, so she said it was, yeah, I interpreted the textbook incorrectly, right? I was like, okay. So in the end, I got the highest grade in the class. I got an A-. And then another professor who just happened to be looking at my transcript, he's like, who's the asshole who gave you an A-? Like, you're like my best student ever. How can someone give you A-? I was like, I don't know. What's wrong with her?
It's back to that thing that you talked about, people having authority over others.
Yeah.
And
for
control.
her, it was an authority thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that scary though? Right. And hopefully, she
ruined my chance of applying for valedictorian. I had an A in every class, A or A+ in every class, except hers. Hers was the only A- I got in my entire time at that school, so I couldn't even qualify to be valedictorian. Yeah,
that's unbelievable. That control of some people control, though, like you look at the amount of people I've interacted with in my life, including, and then, with my own personal life, and then with my business life, dealing with people that are in those careers. A lot of them, that's the only joy they have, is having power over others. And it's sad. Yeah. It really is. It's sad. It is a sad life to live like that. And they're the same type of people that don't have their circle or association of friends or people they hang out with are the same way.
I know.
They commiserate with one another. And then all of a sudden they become old and they're living on the hamster wheel of life. Never really lived life, right? Because they were always trying to bring people down.
Look at the way things are going in higher education right now. We have wokeism in higher education, and then this is like this very vocal minority imposing their belief system on everyone else.
Yeah, like I believe that Annie, you and I don't have to agree on everything we've talked about.
I know.
But as long as we agree to disagree and we're kind about it and walk away, we can. Annie can have her opinion. I can have mine, as long as it's not morally apprehensive, right? And illegal. I'm still gonna like Annie just because she doesn't agree with me. We can still have a conversation. People get heated, and why did they get heated and ignorant? People listening and watching. When there's a conversation and they don't like they're saying something and somebody disagrees with them, because they figure if they get heated or get excited that maybe that's going to change their mind. Guess what? People walk away and they're still thinking the same thing. You don't change their mind.
You encourage them to be even more staunch in their belief.
Yes. Yeah. Staunch, stubborn, whatever you want to call it. Have an open conversation. We don't always have to. And sometimes, I'll have conversations with people. And I have daughters in your age category, right? I have, and literally we'll have conversations and I'll ask them questions and they'll say stuff to me like the old me. So when they were younger was trying to learn that even the young people have an opinion that can maybe sway what I'm thinking. So I changed my listening habits, and with them today as adults, they'll have conversations with me and my son too. And I'll go, I never thought about it that way. Well, this is what you said, Dad. I kind of agree with part of this, or sometimes it'll be I agree with none of it, and this is what I think. Okay, let's have a conversation about it. It wouldn't be heated. I don't like heated conversations. I get up and walk away from them. I'll just go, you know what? Let's talk later
Mm-hmm.
when
Mm-hmm.
you're calmed down and we can have a
Mm-hmm.
civil conversation, right? Not such a stubborn, staunch one, right? So anyway, let's go on to the next conversation. We're running out of time. I love our conversation thus far. Thank you so much for it. Annie, one of the things you work on is people, successful people, like, I know myself, in order to be more known, like, and in trust, right, in my life, I've had to create a brand, right? There's personal branding, there's business branding, but one of the things that is most important in our life is personal branding. So you utilize personal branding in today's digital world to help individuals stand out. Can you tell our listeners what's your definition of personal branding and how have you utilized it to make a difference for others and yourself?
Personal branding is basically what other people think of you. If you open up any branding book, every single book in their introduction says a brand is something you cannot control. It is something you can at least curate so that you can help influence what other people think of you, their judgments and their evaluations of you. So basically, anything you do, say, post online, even if you're not online, people have an opinion of you. You just haven't learned how to curate it yet. Like, for example, if you post things online about the things that you ate yesterday, if that's the thing you keep doing, posting your Starbucks coffee and stuff like that, then your brand is basically the "this is what I eat" brand. If you're a real estate agent and all you do is you keep posting houses that you've sold, right? I sell houses brand. Latest MLM pyramid scheme,
I love
posting those
that.
kind of products. Okay, can you join my downline? Right? And
I
I'll
love
teach you
how
how to make
how you're
money off
giving.
of other people down your line, things like that. I'm
Yeah.
part of a pyramid scheme brand. So you already have a brand, you just don't realize it. Okay. People think,
Yeah.
oh, I don't have a brand. You have a brand. If you're not online, if you don't have any social media, the brand is actually I'm stuck in 2005 brand. Okay.
I love it. I love
So
it.
once you understand this,
Oh,
then
yeah.
then you can start working from that. Okay.
That's
Yeah.
awesome though. Like I like how it's true though. We all have a brand and the people that post pictures, if you're somebody that's listening to this and you post it, you have no, if I look at your feed and every single picture is something you've ate or drank, your brand is stuck. You're stuck. Like if that's the only enjoyment you're getting out of life, like you look at my feed, I get people going, well, you have feeds about your grandkids, you have feeds about your kids, you have feeds about work, you have feeds about
Mm-hmm.
finance. Like I have posts about all of it. And I have people that are social media experts that tell me you can't do that. Why not? That's who I am. That's my brand. I'm a family guy. My core values are faith, family, work. So I show all of it, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I was
I
at my
agree with that.
grandson's confirmation here, and I was at church, and there's pictures of us at church. That's part of my brand. That's who I am. Right. So whether I call my brand Give a Heck, when my last name's Heck, obviously my trademark brand, but that's who I am. My brand is me because I chose to curate it that way. And if those that don't like it want me to be just, you got to stick just in your business wheelhouse. I heard that just
No,
recently.
no, no.
You
I
got
think
to,
what you're
right?
doing is great. I love
Thank
what you're
you.
doing and the fact that you're proud of your religion as well.
Oh,
Like
of
because
course I
it
am. I
shows
talk about it all
you
the
care
time.
about character and morals. That's how I take it. I think other people might think, oh, right wing, conservative, Christian. I don't see it that way. I see it as more like, no, he cares about traditional values, right? And there was this one podcast show that I was scheduled to be on. It was
Yeah.
like 4 o'clock or something. I'm like waiting for the host to come on, and I'm just like, where is this guy? Like, where is he? He's late, And I hate it when people are late. And then I was getting very upset. And so I went on his Facebook. On his LinkedIn, I was like, who's this asshole who doesn't show up, right? Basically, like looking for a reason to be very upset with him. And then lo and behold, when I get on his Facebook, it's just like all Christian stuff, like my family, and this is what I do, like helping out the community. And then I was like, okay, I'll cut him some slack. Maybe there's a good reason why he didn't show up. And finally, when he did show up, he was just like, I have been ghosted on so many times. You're my fourth guest. The first three never showed up. I thought you would do the same. So I figure I might as well not show up for this one. I didn't think you would show up.
Wow.
I was like, oh.
So he made an assumption based on
He assumed.
past
Yeah.
history. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and we all know what assume means though, right? So
Yeah.
it's
But
unfortunate,
I
but
gave him a
good for
chance
you.
just
Good
because
for
of his
you.
brand. I gave
Yeah.
him a second chance and I forgave him because of his personal brand online.
I love that. People listening or watching, what did Annie just say? She went and looked. We are so quick to judge others. I've had people as well, right? Literally sitting here waiting. I've had people, same person that was supposed to be on, ghost and not show up more than once. And now I have a specific rules about it. And I literally will not let you back in the show after you've done it a second time, because now you're devaluing my time and my energy and the effort that I'm putting in to have you on my show. And the same with guesting. I make sure that if I'm on somebody else's podcast, that I've looked at their social, that I know something about them. I looked at your socials before I even sat and wrote up anything. I went
Mhm.
onto your social media. I went into I clicked on all your stuff. I looked at Jot Form and I read up on you. I read everything in your pod match on everything that you put in there. I went through more than once because I want to connect with that person and I want to make sure I'm not made the wrong choice. And because if you make that wrong choice, it comes across, right? It just does. You're not going to resonate with the person, but we already know this. We resonate with one another. We've had some good laughs and it's fantastic. One of the things I do want to, unless you want to add some more to that, I want to ask you about the personal branding, like people that are job seekers, do you want to differentiate themselves in this such competitive market? How can you tell somebody that they should elevate, right, their brand? Like what should they do to their brand to make sure that their niche sees that they belong where they're belonging or want to belong, pardon me.
One of the things is you need to look the part. I think our society has placed a lot of importance on who has merit and who's qualified. And yes, that's important, but like everyone has experience and skills. So what sets you apart? And I realized what you look like actually communicates to people. It sets that first impression. And I think I used to believe like, oh, but they should look past my appearance, right? It's not fair if I'm born looking a certain way or I'm not pretty or anything like that. And then after a while, I was like, maybe I should put a bit more effort into my appearance because before I open my mouth to speak, you're going to look at my face. So it better look pleasant, right? So then that's when I actually paid a photographer $600 to get a professional headshot done for my LinkedIn profile. And when I went to him, he asked me, well, what do you want to be in the future? I said, I want to be a CFO. He's like, okay, we're going to make you look like a future CFO in the making. So your photo actually needs to convey where your future is heading, not what you are now. That's not the important thing. It's about where you're going. It needs to communicate that. And I actually, for people who can't afford it, because I have had people who are unemployed for like 6 months to a year. They've come to me. They're like, I can't afford to pay $500 for a headshot. Are you crazy? And I actually found an AI solution. It's called Dreamwave AI. You can pay maybe about $27 to $99 for their plans. And you just upload selfies of yourself, and their AI will generate professional looking LinkedIn pictures for you.
Wow. Thank you for that. I did not know that. I was telling somebody yesterday that wants to start their own podcast, and I was telling them about all these tools, and they're going, wow, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Thanks for sharing. How did you find out? I had somebody else. I was just having a conversation. I was struggling, and they were saying, hey, check this out, check that out. So I appreciate you giving that, advice to the people that are listening. So many people don't realize that sharing something can make a difference to even one person. And then by holding it in and not sharing it, you're not making yourself any better. People say, well, I don't want to share that secret. Somebody will steal something from me. Well, that's not the way life should be. You should always look at acts of service and helping others. It comes back to you. Don't you agree?
I agree. That's a very spiritual law. It's
Yeah.
a spiritual law. But
Yeah.
some people don't understand that.
Oh, I do it all the I wake up every day and people kind of chuckle. I have gratefulness exercises when I pray before I get out of bed. I thank God for being alive and getting another shot and to make me strong so that I can be better today so I can serve more, so I can help more, right? Because to be put on this planet for just selfishness, it's empty, it's shallow. And if I offend people because of my beliefs, then I'm looking for my tribe. just like you are. We're looking for people that are like-minded to associate with the rest of our lives, not people that are going to hold us back and they're stuck, right? In that stuck mode. The last thing I'm going to ask you, what are some of the common missteps people make when crafting their personal brand?
One of the most common missteps is a very simple one. They're not consistent in their name.
In their
So
name?
in their name, across all of their social media profiles, anything on the internet, they're not consistent. So pick what you're going to use consistently. Like, for example, I was using Annie Yang. Sometimes I was using Annie M Yang. And then maybe 5 years back, I was Googling myself. I was like, why is it not showing up in the search results? Well, yeah, because I wasn't consistent in the name. So now I make sure every time anything is written about me or anything I post, any social media name, Annie Margarita Yang. That way, when you search on Google Annie Margarita Yang, all of those search results were curated by me specifically. And I also
Okay.
have to make sure that even when I get on a show with a podcast host, the name for the description is Yang's Annie Margarita Yang in the title and the show notes and everything like that. So that way it shows up when it's searched on Google.
Yeah, that's true because AI is always searching everything, whether it's audio, video, everything that's live right now on the internet is being stripped or mined or searched or crawled or whatever you want to call it. So it's important that we are consistent within our brand. So now you've given a couple great pieces of advice: professional headshot, how they can get one economically, making sure you have the consistent name. What is your take on posting? How often should a person post when they're trying to increase their personal brand or keep it at least at the same level?
I think just once a week is fine. And it doesn't have to be this crazy thing. You can just write like maybe one article a week, could be on your blog, could be on LinkedIn, something that when you're applying for a job and then the employer wants to verify whether you really are an expert, whether you do know what you're doing or claim to be doing, they can look at some form of work that you've done and your advice, your opinions on things. Like it could be as simple as, okay, we had this specific issue at work and then this is how the problem was solved. It could be as simple as that, right? That way it communicates to the employer, oh, this person knows what he's doing. He's not just spouting a whole bunch of nonsense.
Well, that's a great way to solidify, again, like you said, to people what they stand for. The storytelling, that's one thing actually I'm going to ask you. I just looked down at my notes here. How does storytelling play a role in personal branding? Do you talking about like doing a live video where they talk about circumstances or situations they're in so people can relate? How does storytelling tie into personal branding?
I think it just helps people relate to you more, honestly. You were telling me earlier when I was doing my origin story, that was very off the cuff. So I'm not really sure when it comes to storytelling whether to tell people they need to pre-plan what their story is. But all I do is I say, think about the things that you can't change about yourself. Think about your identity. Like I say, okay, for example, I'm Asian American. I'm a millennial. I am a woman. And it comes with like loaded stereotypes with them, right? Oh, millennials can't get ahead financially. Oh, for women, there's a glass ceiling. Oh, for Asians, there's this bamboo ceiling, right? So it comes loaded with these victim mindsets as well. And I like to play on that. I like to say, okay, well, look, I have this ascribed status identity, but I don't care where I'm from. It only matters where I'm going. This is what I want to do. Right? It
Yeah.
doesn't matter that I'm Asian American and I didn't get into Harvard. It doesn't matter that I'm a woman, It doesn't matter that I'm a millennial. If I want to get ahead financially, I will find a way. Right? So think of your basically identity symbols that people just lay onto you and then use that to your advantage and say, this is what I'm going to overcome. This is where I'm going.
Yeah, don't be stuck in that stereotypical rut of what people want to label us, right? Because you listed how many different labels about yourself, right? Asian
Mm-hmm.
American, female, the list goes on. We all have labels stuck on us, but we can shed them. What are your dreams and aspirations? What do you want to achieve? Okay, sit down and think about it and put a roadmap together. And if you don't have the ability to get that first baby step, reach out to people like Annie. Reach out to people like myself. There's people that will coach and mentor you to create that roadmap. And some people don't even need a lot of direction. They just need a little push. And other people, they need a lot of direction. And that's okay. If you need a lot of direction to succeed in life, to create your perfect brand, to create your trajectory instead of going sideways like Annie talked about, right? That's okay. Getting help is not a bad thing. Put aside your bad part of your ego where you want to show the world that you are confident and know it all, and be humble and say, you know what, Annie, I need help. You know what, Dwight, I need help. And that's okay. We'll help you out. Just reach out and ask us, right? And put that effort and time in and invest in your future. Everybody says, oh, I can't afford to spend this money. It's an expense. Wrong way to thinking. It's an
No, no, no.
investment.
Yep.
It's an
Invest in your
investment
future.
you're investing in your future. So Annie, if you had to give our listeners one last closing message, what would you tell them in regards to giving a heck and never giving up?
It means I think I gotta tell people they gotta go big or go home. I tell people you gotta apply to 50 jobs a day if you want to land a job. Right? People think, oh, that's a lot. No, if you do it for a week, that's only 350 jobs. There's no way there's not at least one person who wants to give you a job out of 350. I guarantee it. And anyone who says that this is not possible, I don't believe you. I've been coaching people and I'm telling them they need to apply to 50 jobs a day. I apply to so many jobs. Nobody's willing to interview me. And then I'm like, well, let me check. I want to see the evidence and the proof you applied to so many jobs. I log in to their, dashboard on Indeed or dice.com and things like that. I'm like, bro, you applied to like 45 jobs. You didn't do 50 jobs a day and you applied to those 45 jobs last night. So there's a reason why you haven't gotten interviews yet. I want you to apply to all 937 that show up in these search results. Otherwise, don't come back, right?
Well, and apply for jobs
Yeah.
you don't even apply for the jobs you don't necessarily fit with inside their box. We
Yeah,
talked about
just
that earlier,
apply. Just apply.
right?
The whole point of doing this is you're just telling the employer, hello, I exist. I'm here. I'm here available for you if you want help. That's all it is. Like, don't make it a big deal about rejection.
Well, and then you apply for 900 jobs, for an example. There's going to be people that don't, and they're going to apply for, some job. They're going to get 300 applicants, 3,000 applicants. You might be that tenacious person like you've been talking about that applied for a job that people are just didn't think about it because it's way down on the job list. They're applying for the top ones. They apply for it and then they end up getting a job because there's only 30 people that applied, a couple
That's
hundred
right.
people that applied. It's all a numbers game. You gotta literally, I guess, in some respects, it's not a great saying, but throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. So throw out those resumes, get them applied for, give yourself the best shot you can. And don't come to me because I have people telling me that too. And I'll say, oh, how many jobs do you apply for? 25, 40. Oh, just today or yesterday? No, over the last few
Total.
months.
Right.
In the last few months? Are you kidding me? No wonder you're still unemployed and at the soup kitchen. But anyway, thank you for that advice. I really appreciate it. Our time is almost up and I want to respect our listeners and your time. However, before we end, can you please tell the listeners what's the best way they can reach you?
The best way to reach me is by going to annieyangfinancial.com. That's ANNIEYANG financial.com. The 5-day job search audiobook is free. So if you go to annieyangfinancial.com at the top, click on audiobook and you can download it for free.
It's fantastic. For those new to the show, just go to giveaheck.com, select the podcast menu. You'll see a picture of Annie, and below that, you'll see abbreviated show notes. I'll make sure that the website's listed in there and any other pertinent information you need to know about this wonderful person and how can you not? How can you not reach out to her especially if you're somebody that's stuck and just not sure where they want to go in life? She's given you so much actionable information. And if you missed it, the thing about podcasts, you can hit rewind. You can go back. You can listen again. You can listen to specific points. I tell people all the time, listen to your podcast when you're not driving if you have an ability, and have a notebook, because some of the best information that's hidden is in that podcast and you could jot it down. And it gives you that aha moment, because what happens? Life gets in the way and you'll miss certain things that you thought were great that Annie said. But if you listen to it and have the ability to write notes, it helps you. Like the amount of notes I jotted down just throughout our conversation, just little bullet points. It doesn't have to be anything. It's just to trigger our mind so that we can continue to climb in life instead of staying camped. So any last closing comments you want to make before I wrap up the show?
No, that was everything. Thanks for a great show.
Thanks, Annie. I had a lot of fun, like in a good way, very, very good way. You shared so much great information. So thanks so much for being on Give a Heck, Annie. I appreciate your time and sharing some of your experiences so that others too can learn it is never too late to give a heck.
Thank you for taking time out of your day and listening to Give a Heck. If you find value, I'd appreciate you sharing with your friends and family so they too can learn how to live life on purpose, not by accident. So you do not miss the next episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and please also post a review. I look forward to reading your comments. This has been Dwight Heck. If you want to check out other podcast episodes or today's show notes, please check out my website, giveaheck.com. And until next time, together let us all strive to give a heck.